Welcome to Esoterica the podcast, where we discuss the obscure, offbeat, and unusual. I'm Chris Schultz, and now a word from our sponsor.
It all starts with an idea, but you can never tell where an idea will end up, because ideas spread, they change, grow, they connect us with the world, and in a fast-moving world, where good news moves at the speed of time, and bad news isn't always what it seems. Because when push comes to shove, we all deserve a second chance to score. Dunder Mifflin, limitless paper in a paperless world. And I'm Aaron Christian. Welcome to another episode of Esoterica the podcast.
So what do we have on deck today, Aaron?
Well, today we are going to be joined by the awesome Canadian rock duo known as Cleopatrick from Ontario, Canada. I already said Canadian, but I felt the need to say the location even further.
Emphasize the fact that they're non-Americans.
Yes. And so this is one of the first times, I think, that we actually have the entire band. There's only two of them, but the entire band joining us. So Ian, Fraser, and Luke Gruntz, who were childhood friends, began making music together when they were 8. And lo and behold, they are now a wonderful band. We're listening to their 2018 EP called The Boys, which was how I was introduced to them. And you might have heard a number of episodes ago when we talked about Dead Poet Society or Bay Faction. Those are bands that, like, their For You pages on Spotify was like, oh, you might like Cleopatrick too. And here we are. Gonna listen to Cleopatrick because I'm rounding out the circle. And the esoteric part of this is not necessarily these guys, because they're becoming more and more on the mainstream. They were on Loudwire not too long ago, which is a pretty popular Instagram account for alternative music. Mm-hmm. And I think they're doing a fantastic job of putting themselves out there more. But what I'm trying to pinpoint down the esoteric part of this is the sound itself. Okay. And that's the laid back and heavy that we've mentioned a number of times since we talked to Dead Poet Society. And there's a lot of cool aspects of the instrumentation with this album that I'll talk about, and I'll talk about in our interview with Ian and Luke. So without further ado, let's talk to them and get into the album.
Cool.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
It's great to hear. I know it's a really crazy, challenging time right now for a lot of people, and the first question we usually ask anybody that comes on the show is, how are you guys dealing with it?
Been a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
But we're doing all right. I mean, like, we have a lot to be grateful for. But it's definitely hard for everyone. And we're really looking forward to getting back to the normal parts of our lives at some point, maybe this year.
Be nice. It'd be nice if we could get back this year. We'll see if that comes to fruition.
Yeah. Not getting my hopes up.
We just gotta, maybe expect the worst, hope for the best.
Exactly.
Totally. So
Cleopatrick, where did that name come from?
Came from a brainstorming session, I guess you could say. We're just trying to make up band names.
Yeah. It's like a personal band name generator, huh?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. It was... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just remember us texting about it, and there was like so many different possible band names. And kind of just landed on this one because we landed on it.
Yeah, a hot topic. Well, not topic, but just thing for us at the time was combining words and replacing the letters, like Fanny Azer. Like, my name would be Fanny Azer. I don't know. We're doing that a lot. And I think it was just like very automatic for things to, like, I mean, not that Cleopatrick's necessarily like Cleopatra and Patrick, but it just kind of blending things was very easy at that time, And Luke just said it, really. Like, there's not much more to it. I think I always say that I didn't like it at first, but I don't even necessarily remember if that's true anymore, but I don't know.
So my discovery of you guys is actually really funny because funny to me, maybe not everybody else, but this band Bay Faction I listen to a lot, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with Bay Faction.
We love that band.
Love Bay Faction.
Yeah, so I'm from Boston, and so are they. So I went to a show of theirs, and that's how I met them, just south of Boston. And I was actually listening to them on Spotify, and you guys came up as one of the suggested artists. So
Really?
that's how I discovered you guys.
No way.
And then from you guys, I actually discovered Dead Poets Society, and we had Jack
Yeah.
Underkoffler on the show not too long before, having you guys now. So
Sick.
it's created a really interesting musical branch of my life, which I'm really glad to share on this show and with a lot of other people. But what I'm getting to with this is that when I listened to Dead Poets Society, there was a playlist created that had you guys, Dead Poets Society, Royal Blood, Highly Suspect, like a bunch of these groups in there, called Laid Back and Heavy. And I think that that is a perfect description of the type of sound that you guys have. And I was curious if you guys would agree that that is a good descriptor of how you guys sound.
Yeah, actually, I've never heard that before, but that is kind of what we're going for, I think.
Totally.
You guys definitely have this sound that's almost like if Highly Suspect and Royal Blood had a baby, and I think that's amazing because they're in a way familiar but different. And so it's what really drew me in, is it's something I'm used to, but in a different way.
Yeah, thank you. That's a
amazing.
great comparison, because I think like when we were kind of starting the band and trying to find or not really find, we knew what we wanted our sound to be, but when we were just trying to like find some influences out of all the rock music that was out there, like those were definitely two of the bands that we were like, oh, they're good. And then there was a lot of stuff that isn't quite as good to us, but those two bands, we were like, okay, cool, these guys are doing it.
For sure. And and actually this leads into another question I had, and I'm a bit of a guitar nerd in some sense, and so I have to ask the question. When you play live, do you have a rig set up similar to how Royal Blood, they have that octave going? Do you have anything similar to that you try to emulate? Because it's just really the two of you guys that are making that sound.
Yeah, it's I guess it's pretty much like the inverse version of that. So like I have my guitar signal gets split into two. Well, actually, it used to be split into two. It's split into like a billion pieces now. But back when it was more simple, it was split into two, and yeah, half gets sent to a bass amp like an octave down, and the other half just goes through my normal guitar effects. Yeah, but I'd also like to say, let the record show that at the time I thought I invented that, and I really wasn't looking to other bands to figure out how to do that. So I wish it was actually me that invented it, but it seems that a billion people have done it before. It's okay.
Yeah, well, I totally understand that. I'm in this boat now trying to reinvent my sound, and I really wanted to ask that question because, you see the people that you want to sound like, or people think you sound like, and, you really want to make it your own. And, I think that's great that you didn't even know that, you think that's something that you're creating. That's great. So moving on to what I have you guys here to talk about, more specifically, is The Boys, which is your fantastic EP that you put out. What was that, 2 years ago?
I think, yeah, maybe close to 3. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's 2021. Holy crap. So what was kind of the process behind writing this EP? Like, other than, hey, we want to write an EP, is there a place that this came from?
Yeah, like, I guess if we trace it back, our first EP, this band, I mean, we never like had really clear outline plans. It was kind of like bit by bit, we would just decide like, oh, let's try and do this, let's try and do that. So like our first EP we recorded because we didn't know how to book shows, and we thought that we needed like recordings to show bars so that they would book us. Turns out it didn't help at all, but so we recorded that first EP, and then that was just like our music for quite some time, and we just played a lot, opening for people and playing like the same bar in this town called Peterborough like four times a month, just oversaturating it, like completely ruining our draw and doing everything wrong. But during that time, while we were kind of just like we weren't living off it at all, but we were just being a band with that one EP out, we kind of started to write these new songs live. And it was always one of our goals. I still have the whiteboard from like when we started this band with still the exact same stuff written on it. It was, one of our goals was to have a full original set list, because back then we were playing a couple of our original songs, but the rest were Highly Suspect covers. There was like a White Stripes cover. I don't know, it's just random stuff. We'd play like a Drake cover every now and then. Like, it was really scatterbrained. so yeah, like during that time, we were kind of trying to reach this goal of having an original set list. And then, Ian, do you remember how many songs we had? Maybe when we decided to we were like, okay, let's try and write it, or let's try and record an EP. Maybe 3.
I think maybe the 3, like Daphne, Bernard, and the Depths. I think we had.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. So yeah, so we had 3 songs that we decided we wanted to record a 5-song EP. And yeah, it was kind of as simple as that. We wanted to record it because we wanted to we had made all these friends playing music, and we wanted to give them a new thing to listen to. Because we outgrew those old songs pretty quickly. And after playing live for so long, I think our sound changed a lot. We really kind of became our own band. And then so yeah, we decided to record this EP.
That's great. That's really fantastic. That I don't know what I was going to say. I forgot. I lost my train of thought. That's okay. My ADHD kicks in from here to there. But anyway, what I do want to do is actually talk track by track about the songs that are on this EP. And specifically, I mean, I know the first song that we're going to talk about is Hometown. That is a fairly, I think, big song now for you guys. I know I play that song at least once a day. So it's fantastic. So can you tell me maybe a little bit about where that came from? I mean, obviously your hometown, I would assume.
Yeah. So we had those 3 songs, and we wanted to record 5, and we booked the studio and paid half the fee or whatever. And we're locked in, and we needed to write 2 more songs. And Hometown was the last song that happened. Might have even been a week or 2 before we went into the studio. It was very last minute.
Yeah, it was very, very close.
Yeah. I think we had kind of come to terms with the fact that maybe it would be a 4-song EP, and thankfully it wasn't. But yeah, that idea started the week we were just trying to write songs, and I think we were sending stuff back and forth, and then Ian sent what ended up being the verse, this guitar part with kind of some of the melody. And then it was just one of these serendipitous moments where I had some other parts that were in the same key.
I just got chills, honestly.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, boom! It just
amalgamated. The way I remember it is, I came up with that part, and I was like, maybe this is cool. And then I sent it to you, and I was like, I don't know. Here's the thing: there's no words. It's just half an idea. And you were like, yo, I think I have something that'll go perfectly with this. And I was like, cool. And then maybe a couple days, or not even, I don't even know how long after Luke had sent me a version of what would be Hometown. It was pretty much arranged to some degree, how it is today. And that's it kind of just popped together.
It was really cool.
Pretty magically.
Yeah, and we were thankful because we were going to get our 5th song done.
And what I think is really cool about this song is it builds, it starts from this really kind of soft place, and it grows into this just something I mean, I've never been to your live show, and I really wish I have, because I only learned about you when, everyone had COVID. But, I can only imagine just people really getting hype when you get to that point in a song like that. And you can I'm just in my car and I can feel it, it's an amazing thing about that.
Yeah. I think that it's always a special moment in the set when we play that one. And that it's cool, because at the time, we weren't playing super dope shows. We were playing to 10 of our friends in 2 towns, honestly, we'd play in. But writing that song, I was imagining those friends plus more, and having these moments, that pre-chorus. I remember that pre-chorus was one of the parts I had separately and just happened to fit with Ian's part. And I remember imagining that the drums would stop there and the guitars would happen, and when we do get to play to 100 people, that'll be such a sick moment, hopefully. And then it's cool to see it pay off. Every time we play, that moment always, we both have chills on stage. Just, this is dope.
What's the time of being alive if you don't know who you are? What's the fun in getting drunk if you can't take it too far? Yeah, my friends just say I've been wasting all my weekends contemplating if it's me or the booze that really gets wasted. I
I think one of the advantages of where we live is hometown really isn't that much of a thing. Like we're close enough to other communities that at least for me, I don't see Abington as being, separate in its own thing.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, think about like the Midwest of the U.S. Their towns are, have miles and miles of nothing in between each other.
Yeah.
And houses are much further apart. Around here, everybody's just kind of on top of each other,
Yeah, I know, like, when I was in high school, I had friends in Quincy, and then my girlfriend was from Braintree, so I hung out with a lot of Braintree people, and I would imagine if you're more isolated in your town than that feeling of, especially if you have a town that doesn't support the arts, it'd be much more crushing and unfriendly.
Yeah, and, like a lot of people from here, like, oh, I hate Abington, it sucks, like I don't want to be here. And, I don't share that sentiment. I don't hate this town that much. But I think a lot of people I go to school with hate it here, like for some reason, like it's just being a kid, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a cliche that you need to get out of your hometown.
It is.
And that's what I guess I'm kind of getting at. When you're in a community that's surrounded by other communities, you can get out of Abington by driving 5 miles down the street.
And I find it really ironic that like getting out of your hometown is something that's like such a cliche thing now, because you think like back maybe 60 years ago, like staying where you are, and continuing the life that your family has is pretty standard thing. So it's funny how the culture has shifted in that time. A lot of really cool imagery in this song though. And for a song that they said that they wrote like last minute, like I don't know if it was like 2 days or 2 weeks or just a short amount of time between like writing it and going to the studio. A lot of the songs they said for this record, and I'm sure you heard in the interview there, that they didn't spend a lot of time working on them or developing them or even writing them until they were like, oh, we have studio time, so we got to get going. Mm-hmm. So, but this is like the last song they wrote for the record, and it's probably one of their biggest hits.
Interesting. And there's something to be said for that last minute. I know Kurt Cobain always said that his lyrics had no deeper meaning, and that they absolutely did. It was like self-analysis if you read them, but a lot of what he wrote was last minute, like sitting in the van outside the studio.
And I feel like a lot of people in that like sense work better under pressure. I know I do. There are times like with my last record, like when I wanted to actually write the music, like I booked the time and then I was like, oh crap, I got to finish this. Mm-hmm. So like I actually put the thought into it and the effort into it, because if it's something that doesn't have any weight and it's not going to matter, then why spend the time on it?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's probably a good thing for a lot of artists to spend that last minute.
And if you're trying to dissect yourself, I think sometimes you can get to the heart of the matter if you don't overthink it.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, Daphne did it, which I really feel like is more on the highly suspect spectrum of your sound, which is really interesting. It's like this blues sort of element that gets included in it, and then there's that almost like screaming you have in the chorus there. That it's not even screaming, but just the aggressive vocal. That again, it's that dynamic aspect that you guys bring to the show, which is I think gives it so much energy. But again, with all these, where did it come from?
Yeah, that one was kind of born around the same time as Bernard, if I remember correctly, and kind of went through the same like story. Like it was a very different song when we first started playing it, and then every night live it would change a little bit. And Ian and I have always had this really cool like unspoken musical thing where like we'll just do the same thing at the same moment, whether it's like leaving out an eighth note all of a sudden and coming back in. Like I don't know, it's kind of hard to define with words, but that kind of improvisation has always been there. And so when we were playing these songs, especially when we were playing these songs to no one, where there was absolutely no pressure,
there was no fear.
Yeah. so like, yeah, they just grew really fast. And I know there's a part in that song that just came straight up from live. I can't quite remember, but maybe you remember.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering exact moments, but that was huge. Like what you were saying about us adding a full 2 bars to a specific spot. Like it was just that skill was cranked to 11 those days too, man. Like we were without even knowing it, writing songs on stage and crafting moments. So I don't know. It is hard to pinpoint, but it seems like it kind of came from nowhere at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that song was written pretty soon after we recorded the first EP. Like, I think that's probably one of the like new originals that we had for a while.
Totally.
Played that at like every show.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the video where you guys you were in that you invited everybody to come to the show. Did that actually happen, or is this all staged for this video?
It was actually real. It's funny. Like, I think maybe it's just a little too unbelievable, or maybe it's just the way the video kind of came out in the end. But we get that question a lot. People wonder if it's real, but it was totally real. That was one of the best nights of my 20s. Actually, I guess I was probably like 19 at the time. I can't quite remember, but yeah, that was totally awesome. And it was a real party. We rented this bus and brought all our friends out into my parents' living room. My parents and my little brothers went to go see a movie for the night. And played this crazy show.
To tell you the truth, she's not alive. But she's all the clues I have in. God, my God, what if something happened to her? I couldn't even explain. She's watching me break up the game.
A love song about Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, on the Genius lyrics, they're like, this is a nod to Daphne from Scooby-Doo. And I'm like, no, dude, the song is about Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, and I forget what I'm trying to say here, but I'm trying to find the exact line. So, yeah, right here. To tell you the truth, she's not a lot, but she's all the friends I haven't got. My God, what if something happened to her I couldn't even explain? She's watched me break up the gang. Forget that last line for a second. But the rest of that section, I like to think of it this way, in a sense that, you don't have to have a lot of friends. Sometimes you just need like that core group of people that matter the most to you.
Yes.
And if they go away, like, whoa, I couldn't even explain what would it be like. And that's the line that like holds a lot of weight with me.
And it also made me think while I was listening to this. All right, so there's two different ways to approach this. If you're singing about your love of the character Daphne, is either it's you looking at her and being in love with her, or imagining yourself as, I don't know, Fred, and which I think is, that made me think of it. And then watching me break up the gang, like if you're a gang of 4 people solving mysteries and you develop a relationship with one, like that's going to be the doom of the gang. That's how those things work in real life.
Right.
Scrappy comes along and ruins everything.
And, I think that there's something to be said, like instrumentation wise, for this song. And I mentioned it in the interview, and I think I'm going to include that part when I edit this all together later. But one of the things that Luke does is the opposite of what this other band, Royal Blood, does. And he takes his guitar signal and splits it multiple different ways. And one of those is going into a bass amp at the same time as a guitar amp. So he can add depth to what he's playing, and those bass notes. So and he can control when those come in. So I think you can catch those pickups in here, and how much just having that low end adds to the song. And I think it's important for all the songs in this record, because to be able to control that dynamic, the low end and the high end and everything, it gives it a unique sound, which a lot of bands, or a lot of groups now, I think are trying to do.
Interesting. I'm stuck on the whole Scooby-Doo thing. And I'm kind of curious, are you familiar with Scooby-Doo?
Well, it depends on what route you're going to go with it.
Okay, so Daphne's the hot one.
Yeah, I knew that.
And Velma's the nerdy one.
Right.
I don't know if you've noticed, but in the cosplay community and stuff, hot Velma is much more of a thing than Daphne. Daphne's easy. She's sexy. That's the way she's built. Right. But people have this thing for Velma that's weird.
We don't need to talk about the ins and outs of the cosplay community when it comes to sexualizing characters that don't need to be.
Rule 34.
Let's go back to Luke and Ian.
Okay.
So the way that Spotify has this, then it's followed by The Depths, which is again a really really fun song, and curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that one came straight out of like Ian's drum part. He sent that like what is
Like
it,
the
6/8?
6/8 or 3/4.
Yeah.
A drum. I really wanted to incorporate just something different. So I was kind of messing around with time signatures a lot, and 5 was a little bit too complicated for the time, I think. So that's like a waltz beat, I think, which is kind of hilarious that it ended up being a rock song. But yeah, I remember sending that to Luke and pretty quickly being stoked about that. And then was that around when you, or had you had the whammy before? Because I like that feels like a pretty fresh whammy effect with
I think
that main riff.
it must have been fresh. I don't know if I would have made the same decision now. If like, I don't really think about my whammy pedal too often now
True,
in
yeah.
songwriting, but like at that moment, it was like, oh my god, this is so dope to play like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like this song. I'm pretty sure it's this song. It strips down at one point, and it just becomes the drums and the vocals. You know, and again, it's the dynamics you guys do a great job of in this record, or this EP, I should say. It's just, you just know the right spots to really accent yourselves, and that's a perfect example of it right there.
That decision was made the day we were recording it in the studio. We decided to add that bridge outro section because we thought that it needed some dynamics. And like, I remember as like Ian was tracking drums, I was trying to write the lyrics sitting on the couch in the studio, just trying to figure out like how I could like have the outro, the words kind of match that vibe shift. Yeah, and I'm so glad we added that part, because otherwise I think that song would have been a little bit too like Runaway Train, just riff and excitement.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always a fun song to play.
What's it mean? I'm at home in my bed, all thinking who's the one's gonna take you home, singing, baby, it's okay. Oh, it happens every day. That keeps fire to no wrong.
Has there ever been a song or an album that celebrated the backwards baseball cap wearing assholes? Like, they must have their own music, right?
Well, I love. We talked about A Loss for Words, right? And I don't want to pick on them, but they probably won't listen to this episode, so whatever. But a lot of times, my friends would refer to it as frat rock. Jock rock is the thing.
Yep.
And I think like there's definitely a certain group of people that like try to make music and think that they're cool doing it, but they're just the worst people in the whole world.
Yep.
And then the people that are actually good at it make fun of them.
And I have to wonder, just because I like to play devil's advocate, like those jock guys, they all seem pretty shallow and one-dimensional, but I'm sure they have nuanced lives with things going on. It's just not anything that is of interest to us.
It's the coping mechanism that I think is different, because they have free access to a bunch of different coping mechanisms where they can just kind of flush away those problems, where there are people who are not like them, who know that those coping mechanisms aren't healthy, or they have overused them to the point where they've pushed away all the support that they have. So then they're just like a skeleton of a person at that point, and they recognize that there's more to life than those shallow things.
Interesting perspective. I like that. Well said.
Thank you. Right off the cuff. And what I like about this song, now that we can actually talk about the song, is they like save the actual like ocean references for the end of the song. There's more to it that they go into, and then we get to the end and it's like, the pirate life's the life for me,
Which is interesting that we're hearing this now when like sea shanties is a
I
thing right now.
What is up with that, huh?
I actually just read an article about why they're popular today, and it has to do with like a community of people singing, and since we're in a pandemic, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and I love that it was named after a pedal, which I didn't know until you read it off of Genius, and you were like, yeah. And I've actually heard of the Depths pedal, and according to Earthquaker Devices website, the Depths analog optical vibe machine. That's the whole name of it. But it's pretty cool looking. It's got like a squid on it and everything.
Nice.
And I might have to buy one.
And I did hear, like, this song to me reminded me of DPS.
Yeah.
Like some of that same, what I identified as unique about them. It's a sound that I'm not that familiar with, that I'm digging.
And there's a break in this song that, if you remember back to Bay Faction, like the vocal melody, you know, where it strips down everything, it's just the drums and Luke singing. Like it's almost like it sounds like a more mainstream vocal melody, you know, that would fit more into a mainstream song, and then breaks out into something that's, you know, just left of that. So I like that part of it. That's what I like about this kind of genre, is like there's some blending of, like, you know, trying to fit this mainstream sound into something that's not so mainstream.
Yep.
You know, and having fun with it.
Coming at it from a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that was the Depths.
Nice. I enjoyed it.
So following Daphne Did It is Calling It Off, which is almost like in this, you know, telephone, megaphone kind of filter. You know, it really has this like dissonant sound to it, where it's not like, it's almost like far away. You know, was that like an artistic choice for the song? Like, did it fit the context of the song, or just like, oh, it sounds cool?
Yeah, you know, this is so funny. Just today we realized that the track list is messed up on the DSPs right now.
Yeah.
So actually the way it's supposed to be is Hometown, Daphne, Daphne, and
The
then
Depths.
the Depths, and then Calling It Off. And Calling It Off is supposed to be a transition into Bernard. But we don't like go listen to our own music on Spotify, really. So we completely missed that. It's messed up on there. So we're gonna have that fixed. But yeah, Calling It Off is supposed to be like the intro to Bernard.
When we first played that song, it was like fully part of the song, just like full band. And then we ended up cutting it when we initially recorded the EP. And then it came up again. I think we just needed to, I think we were trying to get a grant or something. We needed to have fill up one more track slot, and we thought, well, that was kind of it ended up becoming a pretty cool moment, I think. It was never like when, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that effect was supposed to be like, we tried to make it sound far away and small so that Bernard would sound like extra huge when it came in.
Yeah, totally.
That was the goal behind it.
Totally.
Okay, before we go any further, I want to take a minute to talk about the awesome folks at Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way. In fact, it's the way that we make a podcast. Let me explain.
It's free.
There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
And you can make money from your podcast. Best part, no minimum listenership.
Ooh. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
It's so cool. We found the service. We started using it. We're making podcasts.
Yeah, making podcasts, making money, having a good time.
So listen, you want to get you out there. You want to be heard. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thank you.
I feel like I could record an entire album singing into a megaphone, and like it would be okay. I'd sound good.
Yeah, and so when I went through the record with them, we noticed that Spotify, or they noticed and told me that Spotify has the track listing in the wrong order. So I asked them the question. I'm like, is this song, was it sounding like that telephone, filtered pass, was that an intentional stylistic choice? And they're like, well, actually, what was supposed to happen is that the next track after this is called Bernard Trigger, and that it's supposed to, and you'll probably hear it in the interview probably before this part comes on again. I haven't edited this together yet. I don't know what I'm going to say. But yeah, it's supposed to come in before, and it's supposed to be this big introduction to the next song. But when you listen to it on Spotify, you lose that.
Oh,
so it doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I don't think they flow into each other or anything like that. But you definitely can hear, like, there's supposed to be an element there that's just not.
I will say I had, when I was in my teens, I had a cassette tape version of Zeppelin 2. And for whatever reason, and I think it had to do with the running time of each side of the tape, Heartbreaker and Living Loving Maid were not together.
That's a cardinal sin.
And it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, this just does not sound right. And they are two separate songs, but I get it.
So I'm assuming, based on the discussion I had with them, that there's those like dips in the track where it's like, and it has that like kind of back and forth. He's using his whammy pedal, which is a pedal I think Tom Morello probably made pretty famous to use. He uses a lot on Killing in the Name. Wow, 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 wow.
Okay,
So
so
that's a wah pedal. Excuse me. I'm sorry. That's not even the right song that I just did. I just completely embarrassed myself doing that. I do think it's Killing in the Name or a different song, but he uses it a lot. Tom Morello likes to sound like a DJ, so it's a pedal you can change the octave and you can really like it rides a lot like a wah pedal, but it does octave stuff, which is cool.
Now, is the whammy pedal the same or similar to a whammy bar?
No. Whammy bar I like to call a tremolo arm because people can confuse the two.
Mm-hmm.
So the whammy pedal does the octaves, and I guess the tremolo arm does the same idea, but instead of it being a pedal, you're actually taking the tension off of the strings, so you're actually making it so that it changes the pitch.
Gotcha.
So there, a little bit of theory you didn't know.
All right, I learned something.
And I butchered that explanation. Like, anybody will probably make fun of me, but I'm doing the best I can to educate people that are not familiar.
Yes.
I just do the things. I don't explain them very well. But that's that. So let's get back to Ian and Luke. So the next track is Bernard Trigger, which I love more than anything in the whole world. But I do have to ask, so is this song actually in B standard?
Yeah, I guess it's B. Man, I used to know how like all the intervals worked and stuff, and I totally lost all my theory as I continued playing in this rock band. But yeah, like the way I do it is I have a whammy pedal that I transpose my guitar down a fourth, which I do. Yeah, I think that's B. Yeah. And we just did that. I think we might have even wrote the song in E, and then we were like, this sounds so dinky. And then just that pedal changed it.
I had to ask because the tab has it in E, and I tried to play it and it sucked. So
yeah, no, it totally sucks.
True.
But kind of weird. Kind of same to Hometown. Like where did this song come from?
That was one of the ones I can't really pinpoint an exact moment of which maybe you can, Luke. But I remember that was one of the ones that we played live like a bunch, and there was a totally different version of it that Luke had came up with that just didn't have the chorus. Like it was essentially just like the riff acting as the chorus, and we played that live like a handful of times. And I remember that was a cool moment to be a part of, because I remember, Luke, you like coming to me and saying, I feel like it needs something, it needs a change. And that was like a very big learning moment in how like how important arrangements are to songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was something I had never really, I think I was subconsciously aware of, but I never thought of it other than when I like heard it in other songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I remember that too. That was also like, these songs changed a bit when we booked that recording time. It's like I started thinking of them a little bit more critically, and yeah, that one gained a chorus from it. And I think that was 100% for playing it live so much. Like
Yeah.
when you play songs live for people, especially when you do it repetitively, you can just like read the energy in the room. And I remember we would always get to that part where the chorus is now, and like there wasn't enough of like an energy shift in the room. And then there we go, added a chorus, and now it feels like a proper song. That's the beauty of being able to like workshop songs.
But with Marlboro lips, how the fuck am I gonna quit her? Love it. Like that is a great line right
Yeah.
there. Love it.
There was what's the line? I push my friends against the fence. She's on the hunt for fingerprints or circumstantial evidence. Whoa. Yeah, and I can relate to that kind of relationship with somebody who's always on the hunt for trying to figure out what you might have done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though it's not the intention. You know, the intention versus the perception kind of thing.
Yeah, bad relationships, man.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot on this show.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
and the line, the thorn, are you the thorn on my side or just my type? You know, you can have bad relationships that aren't necessarily destructive, but they're also, you know, not healthy. It's, you know, like an addiction to something that pleases you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's bad for you.
I know it's
but-
wrong, but I still want this. That's the line that follows that up.
Yeah.
You know, you're aware of the situation, but at the end of the day, you're like, yeah. And it's almost like there's like this comfort level in like, you know, just because it's bad, you have somebody in your life, you know, and like sometimes it can be mistaken for caring too much, but it's them having this obsessive quality of like ensuring that you're theirs only.
Yeah.
And that might not necessarily be destructive, but it's certainly not healthy.
No, and I think all of us at certain times, if you're not in a relationship for the long run, you kind of have to make a decision about how much shit you're willing to put up with to get what you want, whether it's the physical intimacy or the companionship or, you know, whatever you're getting out of that relationship. It's, you know, it's the pros and cons. Like, all right, I got to deal with this crazy shit, but is it worth it? Yeah, okay.
You know, I saw an interesting meme the other day. I don't even think it was a meme. I think it was just like a picture with a caption. And somebody said, you know, a guy doesn't need 4 years to figure out whether he's going to marry you or not. He knows within the first 6 months. And in a certain way, I'm kind of just like, probably, you know, once the honeymoon phase is over, like you can probably discern a decision pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's certain things you don't know until you live with somebody or things like that, but you kind of get the idea of whether or not you can handle that person.
Yes. My one advice to anybody out there starting on that road, if you're looking at a, you know, like marriage is supposed to be forever. Just bear in mind that those qualities in your mate, and this is for guys or girls, that you find endearing can become annoying years down the road. So, I mean, sometimes they don't. They're still endearing, but think carefully about what you find cute because it may drive you crazy, you know, 20 years later. So,
Quote, Chris Schultz, 2021. We got to keep a book of Schultzisms. So let's hand it back over to Ian and Luke. And so the last song on this record is, I think probably after Daphne is like my personal favorite on this record, and that's Youth. At least I hope it's the last one. I don't even know if I'm right anymore.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but it's probably one of my personal favorites. And I won't I'll wait till you say what you want to say about it.
Yeah, I think that that's one of our favorites too. That was again like us trying to be dynamic and like it was a collection of parts that just happened to kind of fit together at one point. And that one we didn't like. Hometown and Youth were the two that we ended up writing when it was finally time to record. And so they didn't really get much live workshopping, but we had just learned enough about like what was going off at our set and what wasn't. that we could kind of incorporate it into both those songs. And that's why those are two of the most dynamic songs on the record, is because we just had like already within the span of writing those first three and then writing the last two, like grown so much as songwriters. And yeah, I don't quite remember the history of like how it happened, but I remember it was a lot of work trying to get it right, but we were so excited about it the whole time.
Yeah, I feel like youth was almost part of like a very long transition period that we might still be in. Like that was, at least in memory, that's one of the songs I remember demoing for the first time. Like really, like, because we demoed some stuff with our friend Tanner, and that was like one of the first times I remember listening back and like really analyzing parts that I had written rather than just based on playing them live. So that was kind of a cool, different thing about that song compared to the rest. I feel like we demoed something else too, but I can't remember at the moment.
Might
But
have been 17.
Whoa.
I think it might have been. That song's been
Wow.
out for ages. That's like a song that we've played live a couple of times, but we've never put out.
True.
And also I just remembered about Youth that it didn't have the outro for a while. It seems like a lot of these songs were like missing pieces until we booked recording time.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that one didn't have the outro. And I remember one night listening to that demo and analyzing it just like you were saying. And suddenly I was like, oh man, like it's totally missing like a moment, like it needs a release. And then that outro happened.
Yeah, totally. I remember I had like in the chorus, the hi-hats, it was like, it was so stupid. That's funny.
It.
Yeah.
See, that's what happens when you don't get to play a song live before you record.
My youth is flying, so you waste my fucking time. What a waste of fucking time. When you're telling these bitches you love them 'cause you wanna fuck them to pay them no mind. For what coming messing and pissing blue ribbon and talking about women like 24/7. Is this shit not in my blood? Is this how you want it to go? First time I saw
So wow, the last line there, like hit in the feels.
Well, I figured it would hit you in the feels for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, I was a smoker for over 20 years. And I can honestly tell you, there were occasions where, like, that thought crosses your mind. Like, is this the cigarette that kills me? Like, that little tumor is going to start today.
Right. This song, like, I am angry at how much it just called me out. There's like we talk a lot on the show about like this type of music, and I don't really want to call this emo because I don't think it falls in the category, but there's definitely emotional elements to it, so yes, it kind of is.
Well, and all music is emo.
In
to
one
a
way or another,
degree,
right?
yeah.
But especially like the stuff that I bring to the table, a lot of it is like I'm getting older and I can't handle it, you know. But I think this explores it in like a different way, because it's not just like, "Wah, I miss being young." It's just like, yeah, like this is what life is now.
Yeah, and it seems like, again, I don't know if this is directed at the jaw crowd, but there's a certain calling out of, like, really, this is, you want to spend your youth getting drunk and talking about all the women you're going to fuck, and
Right.
and then it's going to be gone, and you're just getting old and dying.
Right.
But that's, youth is meant to be wasted. What do they say? Youth is wasted on the young? Have you ever heard that expression?
Yeah, I was trying to think of, I've heard that worded differently before.
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. But the sentiment is there.
Yeah, there's this just like, people always feel like that, you know, youth is wasted, you know, like and when you get older, like you don't necessarily realize, you know, when you're a kid, you want to grow up. You know, when you're 16, you want to be 18, you know, or when you're 14, you want to be 16 so you can get your license, or you can buy cigarettes or whatever you want to do. When you're 18, you want to be 21. Like there's always this push when you're younger that you want to be older, and then when you're older, you wish you were younger.
Yep.
You know, I can't think of how many times when I was in high school, I'm like, I hate it here. It sucks. It's the worst. I hate it. My dad's like, I wish I could go back to high school, and not have to work anymore.
Right.
I still don't like high school. I still would not want to go back. But yeah, it's like this boundary. We want to keep pushing, and then we get to a point where we're just like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could just go back a few years or 10 years or however old you are in relation?
I've often thought, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on this because I don't know if I've shared this crazy idea with you before.
You have shared this idea. I know exactly what you're going to say. Go ahead.
About retirement?
Yep.
Okay, so the idea being, most times when people retire and they're older, they tend to die within a few years because they have nothing to do and you're decrepit and can't do stuff. So I had thought instead of paying retirement that when you're 18, you get like 2 or 3 years paid. Do whatever you want. Go to college, go overseas, travel the road. You get a salary and health benefits for the period of time, and then you just work until you die. Because when you're old, like, really, what else do you want? Do you want to travel the world when you're like 85? Probably not.
Yeah, and I remember when we talked about this, I thought of it like literally, and the logistics didn't work out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what you're saying, and 2 or 3 years seems almost like short, because you think about like 10, 11 years is a standard retirement amount of time.
True.
So if you're giving somebody 2 or 3 years and then you have to work the rest of your life, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Whereas if you retire, you get, on average, 11 years is usually the amount of time before you die.
Mm-hmm.
Retire at 65 and die when you're 80 or so.
And if there's no war and no draft going on, there really isn't a push to get settled down and procreate, at a young age. Like, that's why people were getting married at 18 and starting families.
Right.
And now people can get pregnant later on. So there's really no... You should get to enjoy that time, I guess, explore yourself.
Oh, and I definitely, I thought of it the other day, like my grandparents were my age when they had my parents. Mm-hmm. So what? Like,
right.
I'm not ready for that. Like maybe when I'm 30, that's in another 9 years. I have time.
Yeah.
Life's just different.
Carrie and I waited until we were probably 30s.
Right.
Or just about hitting 30 when we had kids, and I still don't feel like we were ready. Yeah, 73, 2003. So I was 30 when Nick was born. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm. And my parents the same way. They were babies.
Yeah, society's different, man. I don't like it.
Yeah, I was an asshole at 21. Like, I should not have had kids.
I still feel like a kid in a lot of ways. Like I work at a bowling alley. I'm 21, like, my dad's working in the mailroom at Prudential or whatever at 21, or I don't know his life story.
Right.
He's just my dad. But what I decided to do, and I'll let them introduce the song a little bit more, but this is the end of the album proper. Mm-hmm. But I want to include their latest single, Good Grief, because it's just a single, and this is a short record. So I'll let them talk a little bit more about Good Grief. But that's the end of The Boys, and I wanted to tack on the end here and really talk about your newest single, Good Grief, which I listened to at midnight when it dropped, because I was not waiting.
Nice.
And I really loved that that website that you guys have put together.
Oh, thank you.
For all of that. I actually first want to ask about that. What's up with that? It's so unique.
Yeah, man. Like we just like doing our own thing, and there was we've been waiting to put this song out or just put a song out for a long time. Like, first it was our recording schedule got messed up because of COVID, and then we recorded, and then we had to kind of took our time getting the mixes right, because at this point we were like, all right, everything's been delayed, like we don't know when we're touring again, let's just take a sec. And then we decided, okay, we're gonna put out a song on this side of the year. We chose Good Grief just because it's kind of like one of the more simple, just casual, still like fun, heavy songs on the record. And we just started trying to brainstorm like ways to put it out that would be cool and like give people something to like feel like they were a part of it, even though there's not going to be a show. We weren't going to do a live stream or any of that stuff. And that idea just kind of came up in chatting with our managers, and we were already working on building a new website with that kind of like 90s computer style design.
Yeah.
And they all just worked together. Like we'd kind of done like this pirate radio stream thing before. And we decided just to do it again, but like knock it out of the park. And it was a lot of work, a lot of little tiny details to stress over in that, but I'm so stoked on how it turned out, and I think that everyone really had a good time. It almost felt like it was a show almost.
Totally.
Yeah.
It actually reminded me, we did on this show a while ago an episode about a French EDM artist who created one copy of a record, and he played it on an AM radio station and prefaced it by saying "Pirate Me." So it gave me this kind of callback to that. That's funny, that somebody actually did something like that, and you guys have almost brought that back for that
Yeah, that's sick.
4 o'clock stream or something you did that day before, which was really cool. And I missed that, and I was really upset about it. But we got the song when it came out, so that's all that mattered.
That's kind of our goal is to make people upset when they miss things, though, too. That's a big part
Totally.
of like, social media is like,
Yeah.
we love. I mean, it's kind of mean, I guess, but like we love it when people miss out, because we know that the next time we post something and like tell them like, oh, like be here, do this, they're way more inclined to do it.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, it's always an awesome experience.
I was slightly hopeful, but knew it wasn't going to happen. That Charlie Brown would make an appearance somewhere, but
Yeah.
like
We
a
couldn't book him.
compilation. We couldn't book him. He wasn't around.
Man, I shoulda cut, but I couldn't keep my mouth shut. No life phony, so corrupt. I was speaking my disgust. She lost my lips, fuck fibs went buck. She love it when I trust my gut. Say my peace, give a fuck if they don't feel me now. I trust that they will soon know. Good Lord.
So we had a song about Scoob and the gang. That didn't appear to be a song about the Peanuts.
No, and as I probably asked in the edited version of this to them, I was waiting for Charlie Brown to make an appearance, and they couldn't afford him. I do like this song as grungier, kind of like there's a raw element to it, and it's dirtier, unlike the other ones where there's just like this definitely a cleaner tone to it. So this is dirtier than that. I like that. I like that about this song.
Yeah.
I think it's a different direction, but keeps the element of what they've been doing. So, and when I said to them during the interview, like a lot of people consider them to be like if Highly Suspect and Royal Blood had a baby, which we haven't talked about either of those bands yet. We will. It's going to be these guys, and so I think now they're trying to kind of go in their own direction in a way. With this kind of a track, and hopefully I believe they're coming out with an album. This is where I messed up the interview, Chris, and didn't ask them to pimp stuff, so I will do that after this. But I believe they have an album coming out, or an LP, which is an album, and hopefully there'll be more songs like this on it.
Excellent. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this.
The Boys is a good record. They and I really, what I'm trying to do here, at least, the whole point of our show is providing multi-generational looks or viewpoints or whatever you want to say about different types of music. And, that's really what I want to do here is kind of expose this sort of genre to you and the ether of people like you.
The Gen Xers out there.
The Gen Xers out there, yeah. Because I think in a way and I said this during the interview, like people are familiar with it, but yet again, it's executed differently.
Yep.
So, we're going to look more, I think pretty much all of the albums going forward, except for a select few that I have, are going to be in this genre because I want to kind of trace back where this sound came from and follow the influence and, follow the money until we finally get there. And I think it's interesting. It's like a whole new genre that I don't think's been necessarily discovered, this laid back and heavy sound. But that's Cleopatrick. That's the Boys. As I said, I didn't do a good job of asking them to pimp anything, so I'm going to kind of do that right now. So you should stream their newest single, Good Grief, if you haven't already, and if you have, do it again. It's on Spotify and all that jazz. Visit cleopatrick.com, which has a really cool website that is designed with this like 90s style website. Basically it looks like a desktop computer, and you can go into different folders and stuff. It's pretty cool. And also you can follow them. I believe it's Cleopatrick Band on Instagram and probably other things too. Give them a look. They're cool guys, really, really fun and chill to talk to. And that's them. So I have to ask now, Chris, what is on the docket for next week?
So for our next episode, we'll be taking a dive back into the 60s. with Captain Beefheart in his Magic Band's debut album, Safe as Milk.
I like milk.
Milk is good, and it's safe.
And it's safe. Safe as milk. Well, as always, you can visit esotericthepodcast.com if you like what you hear, and you can listen to other things that are like this. We also have t-shirts that we've actually sold a couple. So don't feel left out, because we are dwindling down to our last 30. We only bought 30.
Yeah, you want to get in and get those first-gen t-shirts.
There you go. Yeah, order them on esotericthepodcast.com.
And make sure you check out our various social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those.
Yeah, not Parlor.
It's not Parlor. We are not on Parlor. Nobody's on Parlor these days.
Yeah. And I also wanted to mention Happy Inauguration Day to everybody. This is the start of a new era in our country, whether it's before noon and one person's outgoing or afternoon. Happy Inauguration Day today.
Oh, that's right. 2021 off to a stellar start.
Yep.
Let's hope it gets better.
Somebody said it was too quiet, then it wasn't quiet enough. So
Yeah.
thank you for spending your Wednesday with us, and until next time,
Stay esoteric.